My name is Cheryl Edgington. I'm the Director of the State Bureau of Procurement, and I'm going to talk to you today about goods and services contracts that are issued on behalf of the state agencies and campuses. So when we talk about goods and services that are used by state agencies and campuses, we're talking about those goods and services that are needed to maintain operations and to fulfill the missions of those agencies and campuses. So here is just a list. It's not an exhaustive list by any means, but a list of kind of the top categories of spend in the state. So not probably surprising at all. One of our top categories of spend is in information technology. So that includes services, includes the contracted staff that work on those projects, as well as the hardware and software that we need. Additionally, we have a category devoted to social, medical, and client services. So for those agencies like our Department of Health Services or our Department of Corrections or our Department of Veterans Affairs who have facilities or institutions that house people, they need to purchase the social, medical, and client services required to assist those individuals. Additionally, we purchase a lot in food and related services for those same individuals. Additionally, we have a category of spend for pharmaceuticals and chemicals, so to treat any medical issues that we may need to for any of the folks that are in any of the state institutions, the housing, or even on campuses for our students. Additionally, we have the state owns and operates its own fleet of vehicles, and so there is a cost not just to purchase those vehicles, but then also to maintain those vehicles. The maintenance, the fuel is a significant cost as well. We then talk about sort of these other professional services. So we might have a need to bring in a consultant for a project. We might have a need to hire accountants to help with a certain project. So any of those kinds of services are kind of defined by this category of kind of other professional services. And last, but certainly not least, is spend related to facilities maintenance and repair. So as Tandra mentioned, the state of Wisconsin has agencies and campuses spread all throughout Wisconsin in a lot of different buildings, and it costs money to maintain those buildings. So this is just a very high level overview of the types of goods and services that we're talking about today. So when we have a need to purchase a good or service, how we make that purchase is determined primarily by the amount of the purchase. So anything that is less than $5,000 is made using what we refer to as best judgment. So our agencies and campuses would not be required to conduct a solicitation or any kind of competition in that scenario, and they would be able to purchase directly from the vendor that's best able to meet their needs. If the cost of the purchase is between $5,000 and $50,000, then the agencies must conduct what we refer to as a simplified bid. They must get a minimum of 3 quotes, and those quotes can be obtained verbally. They could be obtained from a website, or they could even be obtained in writing as kind of a quote issued to vendors. There's no requirement that those opportunities be posted online, but we do have the ability to do so, and I'll talk about that here in the next couple slides. But if the purchase is greater than $50,000, agencies are required to follow an official solicitation process, and that is either a request for bid or a request for proposal. Those official opportunities are required by statute to be posted online, and all the vendors who register through the state's bidding system, which we're going to talk about here in another slide, will receive automatic notifications when those opportunities are available. So when I talk about how to register for those opportunities, I'm highly encouraging everyone here today who might not already be registered to go ahead and take that step, because it costs nothing, but it allows you to see those opportunities that you might not have otherwise seen if you weren't registered. So where are these opportunities posted? So we're going to talk about the 2 main systems that the state has for posting these opportunities. We'll go out to each of them, but before we do, I just kind of want to quickly differentiate between the 2. So eSupplier is the newer of our two systems. It's been, we implemented eSupplier about 5 years ago, and it is where state agencies post all of those official solicitations that I just talked about. You may also see simplified bids posted on this system, but this system allows not only for you to view and access all of those bids, but it also allows you to submit responses to those bids online. So it's a truly electronic bidding system. VendorNet, on the other hand, is the older of the two systems. VendorNet has been around since the early 90s. VendorNet is still being used by UW campuses to post their solicitations. It is also available for use by municipalities who are not required to use it, but can make use of it. So there are solicitation opportunities on VendorNet, but the only difference is it's not an electronic bidding system, so you can't submit an electronic response. But VendorNet also hosts a lot of additional information and great resources, including, forms. It allows you to search all available contracts in the state of Wisconsin and just to view some general procurement information. So let's just go ahead and take a look at each of those quickly. So we'll go out to eSupplier first. So Tandra, can you share your screen with eSupplier?
Sure, give me just a moment.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so this is the homepage of eSupplier. So what's going to be important here is that big blue button across the top that says Wisconsin Bidder Portal, and that's where we're going to go to next. So two things that I want to point out on this screen. We're going to talk about solicitations in a second, but when we talk about registering an eSupplier, that actually, this box here in the upper left-hand corner is exactly where you're going to want to go to register for eSupplier, where you can get help if you need help registering, and you can get additional information about how to register. So it's a fairly simple process, but it's initiated from this screen right here. But in this middle column where we have the current solicitation, so this list here are all the most recent solicitations that have been posted. But what I would typically recommend in order to kind of narrow in your search on the things that are most relevant to you is if you go to that search solicitations button at the bottom. And for our example today, we're going to search using the keyword consulting. All right, excellent. So a couple of things I want to point out here. When you search on a keyword search, or if you search by agency, you're going to get a it's a complete list of all sourcing events. So some of these are closed, as you can tell by the status. So we don't have a way in the system to only look at those things that are active. But the way that you'll know that they are is when Tandra scrolls down here, anything with a status of posted or awaiting responses means it is active, means you can still respond to it if you're interested. And your due date is right there on the right hand of that. So you know that this one is due July 28th. So if you see something and you're like, oh, that looks interesting, you can click on the link in blue there. So it's actually, yep, any one of those three. These are our three very related solicitations. And then when you go to this page, you'll get to more information about the solicitation, including important dates that you want to be aware of, contact information, and then you'll also have the ability to download all of the events that you need that are related to this solicitation. So just wanted to use this opportunity to kind of introduce you to this website, but would highly encourage you to go out and explore it on your own and kind of see all of the various information available. Okay, and then next, once we can get back, we'll take a look quickly. Oh, VendorNet, already there. Thanks, Tandra. Okay, so VendorNet, if you want to look at for the bid opportunities, we're going to go across the top there and we're going to click on bids. And it has a very similar search feature to eSupplier. So we'll just use the same exact keyword. But what I'm going to ask Tandra to do before she hits enter is to click on that filter by box that says include eSupplier. So what we've done is we have drawn, and now if you hit enter, we have tried to bridge this gap. So we understand having two systems can sometimes be difficult for folks to remember where to go. So you could always just go to VendorNet. And Tandra, yep, if you scroll down, you'll see there, the very top, the same 3 events that we just saw on eSupplier. But in addition, if there were events that had been posted by, say, the City of Madison or the UW System Administration or any of the campuses, those events would also show here, and you would not see those in eSupplier. So while I think both systems serve a great purpose, if you want to just have the one place to go to search, you could always start with VendorNet. But both are available for you, and I would highly encourage you to get familiar with both of those systems. So as I said, regardless of if you're going to respond to an event in eSupplier or VendorNet, you need to register in eSupplier. So that is our one main registration system. It is free. All you need is a valid email address, accurate company information, and then what we ask you to do is when you register, you have to select what we refer to as commodity codes, and that is what sort of categorizes the types and goods and services that you sell. So if you are consulting, you'd want to use consulting, any other commodity codes that might make sense to you, because when an agency or campus post that solicitation, they are also then going to assign commodity codes to the solicitation. And that is the trigger for the system to know which vendors to send those announcements to. So you can sign up for as many commodity codes as you want. Just know that if you sign up for a lot that don't have anything to do with you, you're going to get inundated with these notices, but that's okay. There's no harm in signing up for as many codes as you want. All right, next slide. So Tandra mentioned this, so I'll only kind of cover this very briefly, but as she indicated in her part of the presentation, we do have the 5% spend goal with MBEs and the 1% spend goal with DVBs in what we refer to as Chapter 16 spend, which is just another way of saying general goods and services. We do have the 5% permissive preference, as Tandra talked about. So as she indicated, that what that preference does is allows a Wisconsin certified MBE or DVB to have a bid that is no more than 5% higher than the apparent low bid, or in a proposal situation where we're looking at points as opposed to just cost, your proposal could be no more than 5% lower in points than the apparent highest point proposer, and you could still be awarded for that proposal. So there is real benefit to becoming certified when you're responding to state opportunities. But also, as Tandra mentioned, in thinking about whether or not certification is right for your business, it's also, I think, important to think about is when you're looking at these opportunities, is it the right fit for your business? And so here are just some kind of general tips about maybe how to figure that out. So the first thing I would recommend is, kind of fully review the scope of the solicitation and the contract requirements to ensure it's a good fit for your business's capabilities. A lot of that general background and introduction information is located right away at the beginning of the document to just give you a full sense of what it is the state wants to buy. Really be careful in looking at those mandatory requirements. Mandatory requirements, and they will be identified as such, are sort of the deal breaker must-haves that a bidder must have before they could be considered for an award. So these can include things like the length and type of experience that you have, any licensure that might be required. So it's important to know what those mandatory requirements are to make sure that it is something that you could do. And then another thing to think about, though, is that if you're looking at the scope of the solicitation and it's broader than what you have the experience to do, look if the solicitation identifies that subcontracting would be allowed, because maybe either you could subcontract with another vendor to perform part of it, or you could be another vendor's subcontractor to perform part of it, but maybe not all of the service. And then what we like to talk about, next slide, please, is just a really high level, just maybe some general guidelines for do's and don'ts when responding to bid opportunities. And I think you'll hear some other presenters share some similar information when they're on next. But first and foremost, carefully review and follow all the instructions. It is paramount in the state of Wisconsin that we ensure that our solicitation process is fair and it's equitable to all potential bidders. And the way that we achieve that is ensuring that all vendors receive the exact same information in the same format and at the same time as all others. And we do that through our solicitation documents. That is our vehicle for communicating our needs as well as your requirements to respond. So it's important that you review and follow those instructions. Be sure to ask questions. If there's unclear, insufficient information, ask questions, but make sure you do so by following the process that's outlined in the bid. Note all the deadlines, including the deadline for when to ask questions by. Pay particular attention to the due date. We in Wisconsin cannot accept a bid that is even a minute late. We have no exceptions for that, so make sure your bid is in on time. And then make sure you submit all required documents exactly in the format that's prescribed. On the flip side, then, we always ask that you don't assume that you're ever going to get the opportunity to answer questions or provide any clarifying information. So make sure then that you're answering all questions fully in the format that's prescribed. Don't communicate with anyone about the bid outside of the process that's been provided in the bid. This is very important because, again, to ensure consistent and equitable treatment of all vendors, we make sure all communication is handled in a very specific way, and we'll tell you about that in the bid. And then lastly, don't wait until the last minute. As I said, if the bid is due at 2 p.m., we cannot accept a bid that comes in at 2:01. So you want to plan for any possible technical or logistical challenges in submitting your bid. So please don't wait till the last minute. And then I wanted to leave you with contact information. So if you have any sort of general questions about anything that I just talked about, or you want more information on registering as a bidder, you can reach out to either the email address or the phone number listed here. Both of those are monitored by a team in the State Bureau of Procurement and can be a great resource for you with any questions that you might have. So that concludes my portion. Thank you very much. And I will be turning it over to Audra.